Welcome back. A new Oban Energy's heads of agreement should be ready within weeks. Labor Minister Dion Folks revealing that timeline to reporters this morning, along with the fact that a new negotiation team has been appointed.
We are currently in the process of notifying the principals and speaking to the negotiation team to get our terms of reference. I do not want to go beyond that until I can get some specific information as to when we're going to start the renegotiation. We have a proposed date for January, but I have not spoken to the principals nor the negotiation team yet, so I do not want to release that information.
Now, you'd recall the government signed an agreement with Oban Energies back in February for a $5.5 billion oil refinery and storage facility in East Grand Bahama. However, eyebrows were raised after it was discovered that Oban exec Peter Krieger had forced its president Satpal Duna's name on the original agreement. Further, Krieger was involved in 2 lawsuits. Then there was the added concern that the multi-billion-dollar deal was signed without an environmental impact assessment. A month later, Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis publicly admitted in the House of Assembly that his government had made a series of missteps in its rush to boost Grand Bahama's economy. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance K. Peter Turnquist expressing surprise that at this point there is still pushback to the non-profit organizations bill, one of 5 pieces of legislation House members passed last week in hopes that they would sail through the upper chamber. That, of course, did not happen. Senators instead agreed to pull back the bill, claiming there was insufficient consultation. This in the face of Kingdom Life Ministries Pastor Cedric Moss's outright objection to the bill.
Honestly, I thought we'd gotten past that point, and so it's somewhat surprising that we're getting this feedback at this point. And again, I believe it's a matter of us having to communicate with them exactly what the intent is and to assure them that this is not a one-sided bill, as some have put it. This is really about protecting the interests of the country. It is about meeting our international obligations with respect to financial transparency, to ensuring that we are a part of the global fight against terrorism, illicit financing, and the fight against corruption generally.
Now, as is, the bill calls for all NPOs to be registered and to provide details on its purpose and objective. It then imposes a strict requirement on NPOs to maintain detailed financial statements to demonstrate that its funds have been applied in a manner consistent with its objectives.
But at the end of the day, the provisions of the bill are going to have to go forward.
The government had set a December 31st deadline to have the compendium of bills passed. The legislative package is crucial to the Bahamas avoiding being blacklisted. The DPM, meantime, still on a high from the International Monetary Fund's interim report on the local economy. The report touted the economy's continued recovery, with real GDP growth projected to reach 2.3% this year and 2.1% in 2019. The government also commended for narrowing the fiscal deficit from 5.5% of GDP in the 2017 fiscal year to an estimated 3.3% in fiscal year 2018. The DPM telling reporters outside Cabinet that the assessment confirms that the Minnis administration is on the right track with the policies initiated thus far.
We are particularly happy that they have endorsed our fiscal responsibility legislation and what that will allow us to do in terms of making the whole process of budgeting and fiscal management of the country more inclusive through the Fiscal Council that we established and more transparent so that all Bahamians who are interested can have access to data that can have a direct input into how we shape the future of our country from a fiscal point of view.
As noted in Monday's release, the DPM accepts that there is still a lot of work to be done.
There is still a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of education that needs to be done because unfortunately sometimes we are not very good at communicating where we are and why we're doing and taking the steps that we're taking. So that's something that we have to work on so that we bring everybody along with us as we try to turn around our fiscal situation. But as we look around the world and what's happening and see all the upheaval that's happening, it says to us that we have to get our fiscal house in order and take the opportunity while we have some buffers to do that, so that when hard times come, if there's another recession, which some people predict, that we are prepared and that we can withstand.
The IMF will issue a more in-depth study of the country's economic environment. That's due early next year. Well, ask the opposition, and its leader, Philip Davis, would tell you the IMF's report does not accurately reflect what's happening in the country, nor does it reflect the social pains faced by everyday Bahamians. Furthermore, as far as he's concerned, the success of the economy has absolutely nothing to do with anything the FNM did.
It boils down to two things: no hurricanes and the positive impact of Bahama to our economy. It is highly ironic that while in opposition, the FNM vehemently opposed the Bahama project and the proposal by the PLP to impose a hurricane levy to avoid fiscal disruptions from unforeseen natural disaster. The FNM has now gone to Parliament, right, to take funds from dormant bank accounts and to borrow an additional sum from the IDB to defray the cost of post-hurricane repairs.
Mr. Davis further charged that the Minister administration has done nothing but take credit for what the PLP has done. Citing a recent Ministry of Finance report, the PLP leader said the government had to revise its budgetary deficit by over $100 million for the end of 2018, an indication of poor financial management.
This is extraordinary in face of the over $2 billion borrowed to date, a 60% hike in value-added tax, which, by the way, has resulted in, if we believe them, in only a 19% increase in tax receipts. The separation of thousands of government workers that the government claims will accrue $70 million in cost savings. Drastic cutbacks on capital expenditure account. No hurricanes or natural disasters to disrupt budgetary allocation.
Mr. Davis went on to express fear that the government's fiscal performance will only get worse. You're watching JCN News. Stay with us.
This segment of the news was brought to you by Alive.